Hello and welcome to episode 12 of The Australian Runner, a weekly show about running and everything running related. I'm Ben, and with me is Chris.
Hi.
This week's episode is about the biomechanics of running, how to run. Let's get started. So Chris, when we say the biomechanics of running, what do we mean by that?
Biomechanics is all about technique and the way you hold your body in a specific position when you run.
Yeah, so it's all about the stride length, how high your knees are, your arms swinging through, your head position, or just that physical aspect of how your body should be.
Yeah, exactly. Where everything should be whilst you're running.
What are some advantages of having really good biomechanics?
A good technique and a good position while you're running reduces the likelihood of injury because you'll less likely suffer from knee and joint pain. You're less likely to suffer from impact injuries, and you're less likely to suffer from musculoskeletal issues. But also, with a good technique, you can run faster and more efficient, which will overall improve your running.
Alright, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is the stride frequency. So how many strides you should be doing per minute.
Yeah, the debate's always like, should you just listen to your own body and do what's comfortable? But doing what's comfortable isn't necessarily what's good for you. There's a lot of recreational joggers who they feel comfortable when they're jogging, but are they fast elite runners? No. Why not? Because they've got something wrong with their technique, most likely their stride frequency. This bloke Daniel and Daniel's running formula, he measured athletes at the 1984 Olympics. He measured their stride rate, and he found that from 3,000 meters up, that most runners averaged about 180 strides per minute. 1,500 meters were next fastest, and then it went all the way down to 100 meters, having the fastest stride.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But basically, 180 seemed to be the go for middle distance to distance events. So there's a lot of people out there that have different stride rates. You see a lot of people with 160 to 200 steps per minute, and they could really advantage from changing their stride rate to get back to 180.
So what would a benefit be of changing your stride frequency up or down to get around that 180 strides per minute mark?
Say if your stride rate is too low, about 160, you might find that you're bounding, going up rather than across.
Yeah.
And that can increase the impact every time you step and run. And overall, that increases the likelihood of injury. So if you up it from 160 to 180, you'll lower the impact and lower the likelihood of injury. And it should feel a lot smoother when you run rather than a jolting kind of movement, and less like skipping, more like running.
And it will also change where, how far in front of you your foot is hitting the ground as well. So we'll talk about this later, the advantages of running on the balls of your feet rather than having a really big heel strike. So if you've got a lower stride per minute rate, you might find that you're overextending your front foot and really hitting on the heel as well.
Yeah, and say if you're up at 200, your steps aren't big enough, just wasting too much energy. And just by increasing your stride, you'll be able to get a lot more benefits.
So how would you recommend increasing your stride?
Just on normal, easy jogs, runs, just focus on trying to get to 180 strides per minute. I mean, after 6 to 8 weeks, you should be able to do it without thinking too much. Your legs and mind should be rewired enough that you don't have to think about it too much.
Yeah, a good way to do it, to figure out how many strides you're actually doing, would be just set up a camera at footy oval, so where you can see maybe 20 or 30 seconds really closely. Set it up, just run past it, maybe take the average of running past it a couple of times if you're jogging around an oval, and then you should be able to extrapolate and figure out how many strides you're doing every minute.
Yeah, you could even just count while you're running, if you've got to watch for 20 seconds.
Yeah. So now we'll move on to your posture. So this is one of the most important parts of running. If you've been to the little athletics back in the day, that's what they
Yeah,
try and really work on. So it should be really rigid and hold throughout the entire run. So you
definitely.
don't want to be sagging and like getting bad posture towards the end of your run. You want to be able to hold yourself up straight for the entire length of it.
Yeah, coaches are always saying, hold your form, hold your form.
Yeah. So overall, it's pretty upright with maybe a slight forward lean. So you want to keep your head and chest up. And this sort of posture really requires a strong core. So
Yeah.
you'll feel if you're, especially for sprinters, if you go for a sprint, you'll be able to feel at the end of a quick run that you've really worked your core and lower back.
Yeah, it's all about keeping that spine straight, puffing your chest out, and ensuring that you're not hunched over, that your body's like in a relaxed position though,
Yeah.
but upright and proud, because you should be quite tall when you run, not hunched over and small. It's all about that good posture to prevent and help your legs move in a better position, and you won't waste energy on other aspects of your body.
You want to be as efficient as you possibly can.
Exactly. Aim of the game. Moving on to the next important bit is where to land your foot strike. And proper running form should mean running on the balls of your feet. I know growing up I said they told me toes, but these days running on the balls of your feet where you can push off firmly from the ground straight away. One advantage of running on the balls of your feet is that it reduces the contact with the ground, so you get that springiness, which helps you run faster. Just less contact time with ground makes you run faster.
And also, your body stores some elastic energy in the ligaments and tendons in your feet, so you won't have to work as hard. Rather than if you roll over from your heel, you're not really getting that same elastic effect.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing is your foot should land right under your body. It shouldn't land out in front or it shouldn't land behind. Right underneath where your hips are, like perfectly down there on the balls of your feet and pushing back behind. Because if you land in front of your hips, what happens is that you end up braking and it's a braking force applied. So then your body then has to overcome that braking, push off to keep running, and it's just too hard. So make sure you hit directly under your hips.
The last major body part that you use in running is your arms. So your arms should always stay nice and straight, forward and back in the direction that you're going. So you don't want to be going side to side across your body. And with the exception of sprinting, your elbows shouldn't really come in front of your waist. Your upper arm should go from straight up and down. That's as far forward as it should come, and then it should go back. Unless you're sprinting, of course, then you need to really drive through. But most of the stuff that we're talking about, as we said earlier on, is for more that 1500 and up distance.
Yeah, it's really that you got to remember that the arms control your legs. The harder your arms pump, the faster you'll go. But always remember to make sure you're relaxed. Relax the shoulders and swing the arms freely through that range of motion that Ben just spoke about, and to keep the elbow locked at 90 degrees throughout that whole swing.
Yeah, you don't want to be changing that angle between your forearm and upper arm.
Yeah, we're not swimming, so get rid of that forearm movement.
So that's all we have on the biomechanics of running. So we've spoken about your posture, your stride frequency, your foot strike, and your arms. So hopefully you found that useful and you'll be able to apply that in your own running and hopefully make yourself a more efficient runner. So now I'll pass it over to Chris for the week's news.
All right, it's a bit of around the grounds this week with the news. Heaps on. The ACT and South Australia held their state champs over the weekend, so there's great performances there, as well as other races domestically and overseas. Starting with the Oceania and Australian 20-kilometre race walking championships, where Dane Bird Smith and Regan Lamble took line honours with times of 1 hour 19 minutes and I think it was 1 hour 31 minutes respectively. Great walking from them, and it was a great event. Many overseas walkers attended Adelaide for that event. And then moving over to Hobart, they had the Run the Bridge on Sunday, which is Australia's richest 10K race, and 6 Olympians lined up at the start line. The eventual winner was David McNeil, overall as well. To ensure there was an even competition, the women were given a 4-minute 12 head start in front of the men. So the men had to try and catch up and pass, and whoever won overall won an additional $2,000 to go with the prize of first for men and women as well. David McNeil had his work cut out. This made the race fast, and he ran a 28:57 for the 10 kilometres, which is a race record. The first female across the line was Makda Haji with a time of 33:17. That's, of course, without the handicap. Moving to the ACT, the capital. They had a great 800-metre fields for both men and women. In the women's event, the winner was Laura Story in 2:03:44. And in the men's event, St Kevin's went first 4 across the line, with Kiwi, Brad Mathis, Peter Bowl, Steve Nucky and Alex Rowe being those 4. The winner, Brad Mathis, ran a 1:46.97 PB to just hold out Peter Bowl. Josh Clark ran 10:22 in the heats of the men's 100. He didn't race the final, which was won by Trey Williams. In the women's, it was a more subdued affair, with Toya Whistle edging out Melissa Breen for the 100-200 metre double with fast times. Lauren Wells, in the 400 metre flat rather than her usual 400 metre hurdles, ran a PB, so good signs for the upcoming year. Moving over to South Australia, Dylan Stenson won the men's 400, 800 metre and 1500 metre state titles, a first. As well as that, Curtis Marshall equalled his PB and qualified for the London World Championships, clearing 5:70 in the men's pole vault. Heading overseas now, and in Christchurch, in New Zealand, they hosted the Fast K, where Luke Matthews won the men's event, just ahead of his training partner, Geordie Williams, in 2:19, and Heidi C won the women's event in 2:39. Over to Europe now, and Ryan Gregson has continued his strong form in Germany, coming second in an indoor 1500 metre race, but it was an Australian record, indoor record, of 3:36.5. In that same meet, Zoe Buckman ran a 1000 metre race and came 4th, also in an Australian indoor record time of 2:39.47. Sally Pearson has made a return from injury via these European indoor meets, competing over the 60 metre hurdles, running her 3 races very consistently. I think her best time being 7.91 seconds and her slowest being 8.06 seconds. She returns home for this week's coming Queensland State Championships. And that's the news for this week.
Thanks for that, Chris. That's it for the show this week. And thank you everyone for listening. You can find us on iTunes, YouTube and SoundCloud as The Australian Runner, and check us out on Facebook and Instagram too. See you next week.
Catch ya.